minute to go. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome. It is me, Ben. I'm here again for another stream. Let me just change screens. There we go. Oh, hello, Triangulum Studios. I'm glad you made it. Fabian, Max Nerfgun, Spooky Mother Thomas, Jordan, everyone else, Bluebell fans. Welcome, everyone. So, yes. So, the plan for today, I've got 2 screens now, so I can see everything going on. I can see the chat going on. Hello, Oof. Hello, Kaz. I've got the questions from the post I did a couple of days ago, and I've got my book. So, I can actually hear myself talking on the stream. That's not good. So, audio should be maxed. There we go. Can you all hear me? Just say hello, Daniel. Can I just have someone confirm that they can hear me all right? Happy birthday, Max. Anyway, so I'm going to start off with I don't know why it's being really low. I've got it set up to max, so I don't know what's going on. Huh. Okay, sorry about the audio, chaps, if it's a bit low. I don't know what's cracking off there, so I'll just have to speak a bit closer to the mic. So, as I was saying, where was I? Train of thought. Yes, I will start with a couple of the questions, and then I will go on to reading. So this is actually a carry-on from a previous live stream I did, where I read up to Troublesome Engines from the very start. Now, unfortunately, I have no pretty pictures to show today, because my trains broke massively, and I'm in the process of fixing it. Pretty much every asset is broken, missing dependencies, or out of date, or obsolete. The map I was using is broken, it's not working. I am just trying to fix it, but keep an eye on the channel, okay? There might be a big update soon coming soon. Either way, yes, I'm at 3,000. I dropped that. Yes, I'm at 3,000 views now. The Halloween special did really, really well, which I'm actually really happy about. Thank you to my subscribers for watching it. Thank you to the voice actors for watching it, and everyone. Thank you to the mods, Triangulum, Glenlow, Railway Works, no, Railway Master. I can't remember his username now. Callum, you know who you are, for moderating the stream for me, and the chat. It got a bit hectic at times, and I lost track of where I was and talking to people, so I apologise if I ignored anyone. So, I'm going to start with the first 3 sets of questions. So, Egg Barlow, do you like anime? Yes, I do. I love mecha animes. I actually have some Gundam models up there, which I'm not going to get down. But yes, I love my mecha animes and sort of some other type. Oh, what are they? Monster animes and like devil stuff and stuff like that. Will Victor's backstory ever be explained? Yes, maybe. I haven't decided, to be honest. There's a lot of requests for it on that Halloween stream, Halloween video. So I might look at doing something. There was one idea put about that sounds interesting. What is your favourite class of steam locomotive? Anything by the Great Western Railway. Probably the... Oh, thank you, Triangle, for saying congrats. It is a long time coming to get 3,000. Max, I don't know what you're talking about, this WNS crew, so I'll have to look into that one. Anyway, favourite class of locomotive, City class, City of Churro. The Dockside Diesel. Are you ever available for voice acting? Not at the moment. Yeah, voice acting for me, I keep to myself, sort of, really. So yeah, yeah, I don't know yet. I might do it if I get a bit bigger. I don't know. I'd have a lot of other work going on. A couple of the channels I run. So not really at the moment when it comes to voice acting. What inspired you to make Murdoch Stuck Up? I can't answer that one because I didn't write that story. That was my friend Tom Marmark that read that story. So unfortunately, right. I'll get to the chat questions in a moment. I'm focusing on the ones from the post the other day. Okay, so I'm not ignoring the chat, people. What's your favourite episode you've made, production-wise and writing-wise? Ooh, I must say I did like writing Speed Restrictions and making that one. I've enjoyed all of it, to be honest. Right, so one more comment. Yosef Nagash, I think that's pronounced. I apologise if I ruin your name. Will you make Smudger and Duke's story come to an end? I don't know what you're talking about there. Maybe, I don't know. Do you do any stories on Edward's branch line? Yes, the Wrong Trucks episode was on Brendan's branch. What is your favourite episode in season 1 to 4? I haven't got one. I like them all, really. So Bluebells has just asked an interesting question. What is your least favourite video you made? Ooh. Least favourite video. It would be the second one of the Kirk Ronan arc in series 1. What's it called? Not Old Meets New. Not Stepney Returns. What's the one in the middle? Anyway, the reason I didn't like that one is because it was really quiet music-wise, and I'd kind of messed it up. Okay? Anyway, so, what you all came here for? Reading. So I can put you all to sleep. Triangulum, what haven't you decided? Probably best if you private message me. Do I plan to make more ghost stories? Maybe. Okay, anyway. So, Henry the Green Engine. Dear friends, here's a few more. There. Oh, the door behind me is for the boiler. Yeah, that's the boiler room. So, anyway, dear friends, here is more news from the region. All the engines now have numbers, with names. You will see them in the pictures. They are as follows. Thomas, 1. Edward, 2. Henry, 3. Gordon, 4. James, 5. And Percy, 6. Then I expect you were sorry for Henry, who was often ill and able to work. He gave Sir Topham Hatt, who is of course our Fat Controller, a lot of worry. Now Henry has a new shape and is ready for anything. These stories tell you all about it. Cole. I suffer dreadfully and no one cares. Rubbish, Henry, snorted James. You don't work hard enough. Henry was bigger than James, but smaller than Gordon. Sometimes he could pull trains, sometimes he had no strength at all. The Fat Controller spoke to him too, "You are too expensive, Henry. You've had a lot of new parts and new paint too, but they've done you no good. If we can't make you better, we must get another engine instead of you." This made Henry, his driver, and his fireman very sad. The Fat Controller was waiting when Henry came to the platform. He had taken off his hat and coat, and had put on some overalls. He climbed onto the footplate and Henry started. "Henry's a bad steamer," said the fireman. "I build up his fire, but it doesn't give enough heat." Henry tried very hard, but it was no good. He had not enough steam, and they stopped outside Edward's station. "Oh dear," thought Henry sadly. "I'll have to go away." Edward took charge of the train. Henry stopped behind. "What do you think is wrong, fireman?" asked the Fat Controller. The fireman mopped his face. "Excuse me, sir," he answered, "but the coal is wrong. We've had a poor lot lately, and today is worse. The other engines can manage. They have big fireboxes. Henry's is small and can't make the heat. With Welsh coal, he'd be a different engine." "It's expensive," said the Fat Controller thoughtfully, "but Henry must have a fair chance. James shall go and fetch some." When the Welsh coal came, the driver... When the Welsh coal came, Henry's driver and fireman were excited. "Now we'll show them, Henry, old fellow." They carefully oiled all his joints and polished his brass till it shone like gold. His fire had already been lit, so the fireman made it carefully. He put large lumps of coal like a wall around the outside. Then he covered the glowing middle part with smaller lumps. "You'll spoil my fire," complained Henry. "Wait and see," said the fireman. "We'll have a roaring fire just when we want it." He was right. When Henry reached the platform, the water was boiling nicely, and he had to let off steam to show how happy he was. He made such a noise that the Fat Controller came out to see him. "How are you, Henry?" "Peep, peep, peep," whistled Henry. "I feel fine." "You have a good fire, driver?" "Never better, sir, and plenty of steam." "No record breaking," warned the Fat Controller, smiling. "Don't push him too hard." "Henry won't need pushing, sir. I'll have to hold him back." Henry had a lovely day, and he'd never felt so well in his life. He wanted to go fast, but his driver wouldn't let him. "Steady, old fellow," he would say. "There's plenty of time." They arrived early at the junction. "Where have you been, lazybones?" asked Henry when Thomas puffed in. "I can't wait for dawdling tank engines like you. Goodbye." "Whoosh," said Thomas to Annie and Clarabelle as Henry disappeared. "Have you ever seen anything like it?" But Annie and Clarabelle agreed that they never had. What's wrong with the chat? Why? Has the chat died on me? Are you all still there? Have I put you to sleep already? What's going on here then? Come on. It's right, sometimes the live chat freezes on me, so I have to reload the page. The stream shouldn't disappear. Oh, okay. That's good then. It's updated now. Hello Kaz, hello Dan. Thank you for letting me know that you still alive. Trying. Oh. Anyway, the Flying Kipper, probably people's most favourite one. Lots of ships use the harbour at the big station by the sea. The passenger ships have spotless paint and shining brass. Other ships, though smaller and dirtier, are important too. Oh, is it really that hypnotic? They take coal, machinery and other things abroad and bring back meat, timber and things we need. Fishing boats also come there. They unload their fish on the quay. Some of it is sent to the shops in the town. Others go in a special train to other places far away. The railway men call this train the Flying Kipper. One winter evening, Henry's driver said, "We'll be out early tomorrow. We've got to take the Flying Kipper." "Don't tell Gordon," he whispered, "but I think if we pull the Kipper nicely, the Fat Controller will let us pull the express." "Hurrah!" cried Henry, excited. "That will be lovely." He was ready at 5 o'clock. There was snow and frost. Men hustled and shouted, loading the vans with crates of fish. The last door banged, the guard showed his green lamp, and they were off. Come on, don't be silly, puffed Henry to the vans as his wheels slipped on the icy rails. The vans shuddered and groaned. Truck trick, all right, they answered grudgingly. That is better, puffed Henry more happily as the train began to gather speed. Thick clouds of smoke and steam poured from his funnel into the cold air, and when his fireman put on more coal, the fire's light shone brightly on the snow around. Hurry, panted Henry. They whooshed under bridges and clattered through stations, green signal lights showing as they passed. They were going well. The lights grew better and a yellow signal appeared ahead. Distant signal up, Henry. I misread that one. Distant signal up, thought Henry. Caution! His driver, shutting off steam, prepared to stop. But the home signal was down. All clear, Henry. Away we go. They couldn't have known the points from the lane line to the siding were frozen, and that a signal had been set at danger. A fall of snow had forced it down. A goods train waited in the siding to let the Flying Kipper pass. The driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van. The guard pulled out his watch. "The Kipper is due," he said. "Who cares?" said the fireman. "This is good cocoa." The driver got up. "Come on, fireman, back to our engine." "Hey," the fireman grumbled. "I haven't finished my cocoa yet." A sudden crash. The brake van broke. The three men shot in the air like jack-in-the-boxes and landed in the snow outside. Henry's driver and fireman jumped clear before the crash. The fireman fell headfirst into a heap of snow. He kicked so hard that the driver couldn't pull him out. Henry sprawled on his side. He looked surprised. The goods train fireman waved his empty mug. "You clumsy great engine! The best cup of cocoa I've ever had, and you bump into me and spill it all." "Never mind your cocoa, fireman," laughed his driver. "Run and telephone the breakdown gang." The gang soon cleared the line, but they had hard work lifting Henry onto the rails. The Fat Controller came to see him. "The signal was down, sir," Henry said nervously. "Cheer up, Henry. It wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox. Then you'll feel a different engine, and you won't need special coal anymore. Won't that be nice?" "Yes, sir," said Henry doubtfully. "Hello, Jacob." Henry liked being at Crewe, but was glad to come home. A crowd of people waited to see him arrive in his new shape. He looked so splendid and strong that they gave him 3 cheers. "Pip, pip, 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 thank you very much," he whistled happily. "Hello, Jamie." I'm sorry to say that a lot of little boys are often late for school because they wait to see Henry go by. They often see him pulling the express, and he does it so well that Gordon is jealous. But that is another story. Glad you're all able to come and join the stream, people. You latecomers, you've missed half the good stories. It's alright, we've only just started. Gordon's whistle. Gordon was cross. "Why should Henry have a new shape?" he grumbled. "A shape good enough for me is good enough for him. He goes gallivanting off to Crewe, leaving us to do his work. It's disgraceful. And then there's another thing. Henry whistles too much. No respectable engine ever whistles loudly at stations." "It isn't wrong," said Gordon, "but we just don't do it." "Never mind," whispered Percy. Mr. Line. Poor Henry didn't feel happy anymore. "Never mind," whispered Percy. "I'm glad you're home again. I like your whistling." "Goodbye, Henry," called Gordon next morning as he left the shed. "We are glad to have you with us again, but be sure but be sure and remember what I said about whistling." Later on, Henry took a slow train and presently stopped at Edward's station. "Hello, Henry," said Edward. "You look splendid. I was pleased to hear your happy whistle yesterday." "Thank you, Edward," smiled Henry. Shh, can you hear something? I always try to put expressions into our work, even when I'm doing my own recordings. Edward listened. Far away, but getting louder and louder, was the sound of an engine's whistle. "It sounds like Gordon," said Edward. "And it ought to be Gordon. But Gordon never whistles like that." It was Gordon. He came rushing down the hill at a tremendous rate. He didn't look at Henry, and he didn't look at Edward. And he was purple in the boiler and whistling fit to burst. He screamed through the station and disappeared. "Well," said Edward, looking at Henry. "It isn't wrong," chuckled Henry, "but we just don't do it." And he told Edward what Gordon had said. Meanwhile, Gordon screeched along the line. People came out of their houses. Air raid sirens started. 5 fire brigades got ready to go out. Horses upset their cart, and old ladies dropped their parcels. At the big station, the noise was awful. Porters and passengers held their ears. The fat controller held his ears too. He gave a lot of orders, but no one could hear them. And Gordon went on whistling. At last he clambered into Gordon's cab. "Take him away," he bellowed, "and stop that noise." Still whistling, Gordon puffed sadly away. He whistled as he crossed the point. He whistled on the siding. He was still whistling at the last stiffened passenger left the station. Then 2 fitters climbed up and knocked his whistle valve into place. And then there was silence. Gordon slunk into the shed. He was glad it was empty. The other came in late. "It isn't wrong," murmured Henry, to no one in particular. "But we just don't do it." No one mentioned whistles. Yeah, the railway stories definitely had a lot more to each story and added so much more scope. It was brilliant. Percy and the trousers. One cold morning, bit like this morning's, Percy often saw workmen wearing scarves. "My funnel's cold, my funnel's cold," he would puff. "I want a scarf, I want a scarf." "Rubbish, Percy," said Henry one day. "Engines don't wear scarves." "Engines with proper funnels do," said Percy in his cheeky wee. "You've only got a small one." Henry snorted. He was proud of his short, neat funnel. Just then a train came in and Percy, still puffing, "I want a scarf, I want a scarf," went to take the coaches to their sidings. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station. And Percy would try to surprise the coaches by quietly... I'm completely lost. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station, and Percy would try to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. 2 porters were taking some luggage across the line. They had a big load and were walking backwards to see that none fell off the trolley. Percy arrived so quietly that the porters didn't hear him till he hit the trolley. Again, misread that, I apologise. Percy arrived so quietly that the porters didn't hear him till the trolley was on the line. The porters jumped clear. The trolley disappeared with a crunch. Boxes and bags burst in all directions. "Oh, ah!" groaned Percy and stopped. Sticky streams of red and yellow jam trickled down his face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Clothes, hats, boots, shoes, skirts and blouses stuck to his front. A pair of striped trousers coiled lovingly around his funnel. They were grey no longer. Angry passengers looked at their broken trunks. The fat controller seized the top hat. "Mine," he said crossly. "Percy," he shouted, "look at this." "Yes, sir, I am, sir," a muffled voice replied. My best trousers too. Yes, sir. Please, sir, said Percy nervously. I am very cross, said the Fat Controller. We must pay the passengers for their spoilt clothes. My hat is dented and my trousers are ruined. All because you will come into the station as you were playing grandmother's steps with the coaches. The driver unwound the trousers. The Fat Controller waved them away. Percy wanted a scarf. He shall have my trousers for a scarf. They will keep him warm. Percy wore them back to the yard. He didn't like scarves now. There's also a bit of information here. This story is adapted from one told by Mr. C. Hamilton Ellis in The Trains We Loved. We gratefully acknowledge his permission to use it. I feel one of these coming on. Henry sneeze. One lovely Saturday morning, Henry was puffing along. The sun shone, the fields were green, the birds sang. Henry had plenty of steam in his boiler and was feeling happy. I feel so well, I feel so well, he sang. Trickety-trock, hummed his coaches. Henry saw some boys on the bridge. Pip, pip, hello, he whistled cheerfully. Pip, 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 he called the next moment. Oh, 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 for the boys didn't wave and take his number. They dropped stones on him instead. They were silly, stupid boys who thought it would be fun to drop stones down his funnel. Some of the stone hit Henry's boiler and spoiled. Some of the stones hit Henry's boiler and spoiled his paint. One hit the fireman on the head as he was shoveling coal. Another broke the carriage's windows. It's a shame, hissed Henry. They've broken our glass, sobbed the coaches. The driver opened the first aid box, bandaged the fireman's head, and planned what he was going to do. Hello, Will. They stopped the train, and the guard asked if any passengers were hurt. No one was hurt, but everyone was cross. They saw the fireman's bumped head and told him what to do for it. And they looked at Henry's paint. Call the police, they shouted angrily. No, said the driver. Leave it to Henry and me. We'll teach those lads a lesson. What will they do? What will you do, they asked. Can you keep a secret? Yes, yes, they all said. Well then, said the driver, Henry is going to sneeze at them. What? Cried all the passengers. The driver laughed. Henry draws in air through his fire and puffs it out with smoke and steam. When he puffs hard, the air blows ashes from his fire into his smoke box, and these ashes sometimes prevent him puffing properly. When your nose is blocked and you sometimes sneeze, if Henry's smoke box is blocked, I can make air and steam blow the ashes out through his funnel. We will do it at the bridge and startle those boys. Henry puffed on to the terminus where he had a rest. Then he took the train back. Lots of people were waiting at the station just before the bridge. They wanted to see what would happen. Beg pardon? Henry has plenty of ashes, said the driver. Please keep all windows shut till we have passed the bridge. Henry is excited as we are, aren't you, old fellow? And he patted Henry's boiler. Henry didn't answer. He was feeling stuffed up. But he winked at his driver like this. The guard's flag waved, his whistle blew, and they were off. Soon in the distance they saw the bridge. And all there were the boys, and they all had stones. Are you ready, Henry? Said his driver. Sneeze hard when I tell you. Now, he said, and turned the handle. Smoke and steam and ashes spouted from his funnel. They went all over the bridge and all over the boys, who ran away as black as soot. Well done, Henry, laughed his driver. They won't drop stones on an engine again. Your coat is all black, but we'll rub you down and paint your scratches, and you'll be good as new tomorrow. Henry has never again sneezed under a bridge. The Fat Controller doesn't like it. His smoke box is always cleaned in the yard while he's resting. He has now gone under more bridges than he can count, but from that day to this, There have been no more boys with stones. And that ends Henry's stories. Henry the Green Engine. The next one will be Toby the Tram Engine, our favourite little brown engine. But first, 3 more comments and 3 more questions from the previous post. Will you plan on having Billy appear in the series with a different character that I mentioned a few months ago? Asked Rybooth. Not at the moment. It was a good idea, but unfortunately, I'm not a fan of Billy. I might look into it, but not at the moment, okay? Okay, I can't pronounce your username, but what is your favourite Thomas theme is the question. Toby's theme, followed by the Scottish Twins theme, if you're thinking of music. Mr. Q asks, do you plan on making stories about the Peel Godrich branch electric locomotives? Maybe. Yes, I do. I do have that route available when trains start working again. But I might do a story about them. I'll see. I'm not sure what I can do. Sodor Flubs asks, and these will be the last 3 questions, where do you get your ideas from? Here. I just have random sparks of inspiration. I'll be whistling a tune or thinking or something, like a conversation between the engines, and it just sort of spirals out from there. Sometimes I take inspiration from real life, sometimes whatever comes to my crazy ass mind. How did you get into Thomas the Tank Engine? I don't know. It's been that long, I honestly can't remember. I just remember it's always been there. So, who is your favourite character? I don't really have one. There's some characters I'd like to see used more often, but at the moment I don't really have a favourite character. I kind of liked doing Percy, so okay, maybe Percy's my favourite, I don't know. Jamie Boy, did you know Toby and Edward's theme were considered for the original Thomas theme? No, I did not. Canadian engines. I want to know if any future stories will introduce an awesome Canadian engine. I don't know. To be honest, maybe. I think I might be able to pull something off if I rewrite a character. Anyway, we'll stop with questions for now and carry on story reading. Toby the Tram Engine. Dear friends, poor Thomas has been in trouble. So the Fat Controller asked Toby to come and help run the branch line. Thomas and Toby are very good friends. Toby is a funny little engine with a queer shape. He works very hard and we are fond of him. We hope you'll like him too. Toby and the Stout Gentleman. Toby is a tram engine. He is short and sturdy. He has cow catchers and side plates and doesn't look like a steam engine at all. He takes trucks from the farms and factories to the main line, and the big engines take them to London and elsewhere. His tram line runs along roads and through fields and villages. Toby rings his bell cheerfully to everyone he meets. He has a coach called Henrietta, who has seen better days. She complains because she has few passengers. Toby is attached to Henrietta and always takes her with him. She might be useful one day, he says. It's not fair at all, grumbles Henrietta as the buses roar past full of passengers. She remembers that she used to be full, and 9 trucks would rattle behind her. Now, there are only 3 or 4 for the tram, for the factories and farms. Send their goods mostly by lorry. Toby is always careful on the road. The cars and buses and lorries often have accidents. Toby hasn't had an accident for years. But the buses are crowded and Henrietta is empty. I can't understand it, says Toby the tram engine. People come to see Toby, but they come by bus. They stare at him. Isn't they quaint? They say, and laugh. They make him so cross. One day a car stopped close by and a little boy jumped out. Come on, Bridget, he called to his sister, and together they ran across to Toby. 2 ladies and a stout gentleman followed. The gentleman looked important, but nice. The children ran back. Come on, grandfather, do look at this engine, and seized his hand. They almost dragged him along. "That's a tram engine, Stephen," said the stout gentleman. "Is it electric?" asked Bridget. "Whoosh!" hissed Toby. "Shh, shh," said her brother. "You've offended him. But trams are electric, aren't they?" "They are mostly," the stout gentleman answered, "but this is a steam tram." "May we go in it, grandfather, please?" The guard had begun to blow his whistle. "Stop!" said the stout gentleman, and raised his hand. The guard, surprised, opened his mouth, and the whistle fell out. While he was picking it up, and they all scrambled into Henrietta. "Hip, hip, hurrah!" chanted Henrietta, and she rattled happily behind. Toby did not sing. "Electric indeed! Electric indeed!" he snorted. He was very hurt. The stout gentleman and his family got out at the junction, but waited for Toby to take them back to their car. "What is your name?" asked the stout gentleman. "Toby, sir." "Thank you, Toby, for a very nice ride." "Thank you, sir," said Toby politely. He felt better now. This gentleman, he thought, is a gentleman who knows how to speak to engines. The children came every day for a fortnight. Sometimes they rode with the guard, sometimes in empty trucks, and on the last day of all, the driver invited them into his cab. All were sorry when they had to go away. Stephen and Bridget said thank you to Toby, his driver, his fireman, and the guard. The stout gentleman gave them all a present. "Peep, peep, peep, peep," whistled Toby. "Come back soon." We will, called the children, and they waved till Toby was out of sight. The months passed. Toby had few trucks and fewer passengers. "Our last day, Toby," said his driver sadly one morning. "The manager says we must close tomorrow." That day, Henrietta had more passengers than she could manage. They rode in the trucks and crowded in the brake van, and the guard had enough tickets to go around. The passengers joked and sang, but Toby and his driver wished they wouldn't. "Goodbye, Toby," said the passengers afterwards. "We are sorry your line is closing down." "So am I," said Toby sadly. The last passenger left the station, and Toby puffed slowly to his shed. "Nobody wants me," he thought, and went unhappily to sleep. The next morning the shed flung open, and he woke with a start to his fireman dancing a jig outside. His driver, excited, waved a piece of paper. "Wake up, Toby," they shouted, "and listen to this. It's a letter from the stout gentleman." And Toby listened. But I mustn't tell you any more, or I shall spoil the next story, which we're about to get on to. Thomas in trouble. Has anyone else got goosebumps? I know I have. There is a line to a quarry at the end of Thomas's branch. It goes for some distance along the road. Thomas was always very careful here in case anyone was coming. "Peep, peep, peep, peep," he whistled. Then the people got out of the way, and he puffed slowly along with his trucks, rumbling behind him. Early one morning there was no one on the road, but a large policeman was sitting on the grass close to the line. "Oh, Sodor Flubs, I answered your questions a moment ago. I don't know if you heard them. Anyway, where was I? Early one morning there was no one on the road, but a large policeman was sitting on the grass close to the line. He was shaking a stone from his boot. Thomas liked policemen. He'd been a great friend of the constable who lived in the village, but he'd just retired. Thomas expected the new constable would be friendly too. "Pip, pip," he whistled. "Good morning." The policeman jumped and dropped his boot. He scrambled out and hopped around on one leg till he was facing Thomas. Thomas was sorry to see he didn't look friendly at all. He was red in the face and very cross. The policeman wobbled about, trying to keep his balance. "Disgraceful," he spluttered. "I didn't sleep a wink last night. It was so quiet, and now engines come whistling suddenly behind me. My first day in the country, too." He picked up his boot and hopped over to Thomas. "I'm sorry, sir," said Thomas. "I was only saying good morning." The policeman grunted and leaned against Thomas's buffer. The policeman grunted and leaned against Thomas's buffer. He put his boot on. He drew himself up and pointed to Thomas. "Where's your cowcatcher?" he asked accusingly. "But I don't catch cows, sir." "Don't be funny," snapped the policeman. He looked at Thomas's wheels. "No side plates either." And he wrote in his notebook, "Engines going on public roads must have their wheels covered and a cowcatcher in front. You haven't, so you are dangerous to the public." "Rubbish," said his driver. "We've been along here hundreds of times and never had an accident." "That makes it worse," the policeman answered. He wrote "regular lawbreaker" in his book. Thomas puffed sadly away. The fat controller was having breakfast. He was eating toast and marmalade. He had the newspaper open in front of him. Football. And his wife had just given him some more coffee. "Excuse me, sir, you're wanted on the telephone." "Bother that telephone," said the fat controller. "I'm sorry, my dear," he said in a few minutes later. "Thomas is in trouble with the police. I must go at once." He gulped down his coffee and hurried out of the room. At the junction, Thomas's driver told the fat controller what had happened. "Dangerous to the public indeed. We'll see about that." And he climbed grimly into Annie the coach. The policeman was on the platform at the other end. The fat controller spoke to him at once, and a crowd collected to listen. Other policemen came too to see what was happening, and the fat controller had argued with them too, but it was no good. "The law is the law," they said, "and we can't change it." The fat controller felt exhausted. He mopped his face. "I'm sorry, driver," he said. "It's no use arguing with policemen. We'll have to make those cowcatcher things for Thomas, I suppose." "Everyone will laugh, sir," said Thomas sadly. They'll say I look like a tram engine." The fat controller stared. Then he laughed. "Well done, Thomas. Why didn't I think of it before? We want a tram engine. When I was on my holiday, I met a nice little engine called Toby. He hasn't enough work to do and needs a change. I'll write to his controller at once." A few days later, Toby arrived. "That's a good engine," said the fat controller. "I say you've brought Henrietta." "You don't mind, do you, sir?" asked Toby anxiously. "The station master wanted to use her in a hen house, and that would never do." "No, indeed," the fat controller said gravely. "We wouldn't allow that." Toby made the trucks behave even better than Thomas did. At first, Thomas was jealous, but he was so pleased when Toby rang his bell and made the policeman jump. They've been firm friends ever since. Right, let me catch up on the chat. Thank you, Flubs, for saying that you love the way I read. It really is helpful. Will, I'm not sure at the moment, Will. I'm not looking for any more writers, I'm afraid. NWR, I'm probably sure he wasn't drunk, just very, very angry he wasn't sleeping. I know I would be if I had to wake up at a silly clock in the... Oh, wait, I do wake up at a silly clock in the morning to go to work. Anyway, dirty objects. Toby and Henrietta take the workmen to the quarry every morning. At the junction, they often meet James. Toby and Henrietta were shabby when they first came and needed new paint. James was very rude. What dirty objects," he would say. At last, Toby lost his patience. "James," he asked, "why are you red?" "I'm a splendid engine," answered James loftily. "Ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty." "Oh," said Toby innocently. "That's why you once needed bootlaces to be ready, I suppose." James went redder than ever and snorted off. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. I have that train's model. Don't worry, Candence. I have that train's that Sunshine model. Anyway. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow goods, stopping at every station to pick up and set down trucks. James hated slow goods trains. "Dirty trucks from dirty sidings, ugh," he grumbled. Starting with only a few, he picked up more and more trucks at each station. till he had a long train. At first the trucks behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they determined to pay him out. Presently, rumbling over the viaduct, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy goods trains halt here to pin down their brakes. James had had an accident with trucks before, and should have remembered this. "Wait, James, wait," said his driver, but James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking what he would say to Toby when they next met. Oh, sorry, I've a bit of a burp. Too late, he saw where he was and tried to stop. "Hurry, hurry!" laughed the trucks and banged their buffers. They pushed him down the hill. The guard tightened his brakes until they screamed. "On, on, on!" yelled the trucks. "I've got to stop, I've got to stop," groaned James, and setting his brakes he managed to check the trucks' mad rush, but they were still going much too fast to stop in time. Through the station they thundered and lurched into the yard. James shut his eyes. There was a bursting crash and something sticky splashed all over him. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smokebox to cab. No, I haven't watched Sodor A Dark Times at the moment. James was more dirty than hurt, but the tar wagons and some of their trucks were all to pieces. The breakdown train was in the yard, and they soon tidied up the mess. Toby and Percy were sent to help and came as quickly as they could. "Look here, Percy," exclaimed Toby. "Whatever is that dirty object?" "That's James, didn't you know?" "It's James' shape," said Toby thoughtfully. "But James's splendid red engine. You never see his paint dirty." James shut his eyes and pretended he hadn't heard. They cleared away the unhurt trucks and helped James home. The fat controller met them. "Well done, Percy and Toby," he said. He turned to James. "Fancy letting your trucks run away. I am surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. Toby shall have a new coat of paint. Chocolate and blue, I think." "Please, sir, can Henrietta have one too?" "Certainly, Toby," he smiled. "She shall have it brown like Annie and Clarabelle." "Oh, thank you, sir. She will be pleased." Toby ran home happily to tell her the news. Not at the moment, Candace. I do one special a year, so that's the special done for this year, I'm afraid, with the Halloween special. Mrs. Kindly's Christmas. Why is that so heavy? Okay. It's right, I'm just moving my keyboard. Anyway, Mrs. Kindly's Christmas. Here you go, here's your Christmas special. It was nearly Christmas. Annie and Clarabelle were packed full of people and parcels. Come on, he puffed. Thomas was having very hard work. "We're feeling so full," grumbled the coaches. Thomas looked at the hill ahead. Can I do it? Can I do it?" he puffed anxiously. Suddenly he saw a handkerchief waving from a cottage window. He felt better at once. Yes, I can, he puffed bravely. He pulled his hardest and was soon through the tunnel and resting in the station. "That was Mrs. Kindly who waved to you, Thomas," said his driver. "She was to stay in bed all day." "Poor lady," said Thomas. "I'm sorry for her." Engines have heavy loads at Christmas time, but Thomas and Toby didn't mind the hard work when they saw Mrs. Kindly waving. But then it began to rain. It rained for days and days. Thomas didn't like it, nor did his driver. "Off we go, Thomas," he would say. "Pull hard and get home quickly. Mrs. Kindly won't wave today." But whenever she waved or not, they always whistled when they passed this little lonely cottage. Its white walls stood out against the dark background of the hills. "Hello!" exclaimed Thomas's fireman one day. "Look at that!" The driver came across the cab. "Something wrong here," he said. "Hanging, flapping, and bedraggled." That word makes no sense. Hanging and flapping about from a window of the cottage was something that looked like a large red flag. "Mrs. Kindly needs help, I expect," said the driver, and put on the brakes. Thomas gently stopped. The guard came squelching through the rain up to Thomas's cab, and the driver pointed at the flag. "See if a doctor's on the train and ask him to go to the cottage. Then walk back to the station and tell them we've stopped." The fireman went to see if the line was clear in front. 2 passengers left the train and climbed to the cottage. Then the fireman returned. "We'll back down to the station," said the driver, "so that Thomas can get a good start." "We shan't get up the hill," the fireman answered. "Come and see what's happened." They walked along the line round the bend. "Jiminy Christmas!" explained the driver. "Bo, go back to the train. I'm going to the cottage." He found the doctor with Mrs. Kindly. "Silly of me to faint," she said. "You saw the red dressing gown. You're all safe," said Mrs. Kindly. "Yes," smiled the driver. "I've come to thank you. There was a landslide in the cutting, Doctor, and Mrs. Kindly saw it from a window and stopped us. She saved our life." "God bless you, ma'am," said the driver, and tiptoed from the room. They cleared the line by Christmas Day, and the sun shone as the special train puffed up the junction. First came Toby, then Thomas with Annie and Clarabelle, and last of all, but very pleased at being allowed to come, was Henrietta. The Fat Controller was there, and lots of people who wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Kindly. "Pip pip, happy Christmas," whistled the engines as they reached the place. The people got out and climbed to the cottage. Thomas and Toby wished they could go too. Mrs. Kindly's husband met them at the door. The Fat Controller, Thomas's driver, fireman and guard went upstairs while the others stood in the sunshine below the window. The driver gave her a new dressing gown to replace the one spoilt by the rain. The guard brought her some grapes, and the fireman gave her some woolly slippers and promised to bring some coal as a present from Thomas next time they passed. Mrs. Kindly was very pleased with her presents. "You are very good to me," she said. The passengers and I," said the Fat Controller, "hope you will accept these tickets for the South Coast, Mrs. Kindly, and get really well in the sunshine. We cannot thank you enough for preventing the accident. I hope you've not tired you. Goodbye and happy Christmas." Then, going quietly downstairs, they joined the group outside the window and sang some carols before returning to the train. Mrs. Kindly is now at Bournemouth, getting better every day, and Thomas and Toby are looking forward to the time when they can welcome her home. So, back to the chat for a second. Thank you, Carl Matthews. I really do appreciate that. And Flubs and Triang, that is really nice. Thank you very much. The Tugs episode, unfortunately, like I said earlier, the trains isn't working at the moment for me, so everything is on hold. I don't know when it's going to come out at all. So, yeah, I'm really upset about that one. Daniel, it's kind of adapted. It's an odd one. So, yeah. What got me into Thomas, as I replied earlier, I don't know. To be honest, it's just always been there in my life. Anyway, 3 more questions. NWR81, I believe. Who inspired you to make Sodor Chronicles? Wild Nor'Wester. And he actually helped me a lot in the early days, to be honest. Yeah, I watched Wild Nor'Wester's stuff. Really liked it. Found out you could download the models into the game and everything, and thought, why not give it a go? So I did. If you could make a Thomas series with any merchandise for free, which brand would you choose to make a series with? I don't know. I would probably just stick to the simulators because I can do more with them. I have nothing against people that use physical models, and I'm really happy that people do that, but it's just not my art style. How did I come up with the title Sodor Chronicles? I can't remember. It just came to me. I had an epiphany. So, no, I didn't know that, Candence. If that would be interesting to find out how to fix, if I can fix all my assets. Anyway, Kaz, I know you're in the stream, so I'm going to answer your questions now. If I were to give you a story idea, would you accept it? I look at all story ideas, and I will tell you on each and every one of them. How has progress for Season 3 been going? Terrible! It's all broken and dying. Would you ever make an OC based on yourself like some of the other YouTubers? I have got an OC in trains. I was practicing with an austerity tank reskinning. The austerity tank came white and the maker was like, yeah, just reskin it, whatever you want. So I had a go, and then I made my own version of Sheffield. Oh, only 2 more sets of questions left, so I might as well get through them and just carry on reading for a bit. Damonson Lodge Productions. What is your favourite fan-made Thomas film? Anything made by Wild Nor'Wester, to be honest. His stuff's been really good. Which episode of your series was the most fun to write? Again, speed restrictions and heritage. So yeah, those 2 what I would say I would fix. Thank you, Candence. I will look into that fix when I can get the assets working. So my favourite video is 100. Do you not plan to make other special Xmas for Thomas? Yes, next year. It will be the next Christmas special, if I can get trains working. Have you got any toys for Thomas and Friends? Yes, I have. I've got a box full of Ertles in the boiler room, actually. And I'm still looking to collect some more. Apart from Thomas, did you like My Little Pony? I did for a while, but unfortunately I've grown out of it. So, oh well. Sodor Flubs, I'm glad you enjoyed Speed Restrictions. I actually really enjoyed making that one, and it felt nice giving Gordon what to do. Speaking of Gordon the big engine. So anyway, as I was saying, all the questions from that post are now done. No, you cannot have my Ertles. They're mine. You can have them for £1 million. How's that one? And even then, I'll probably still say no. Anyway, so if you've got any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will answer them as I read along now. What are my interests outside of Thomas? Ooh. Outside of Thomas, military collecting stuff and airsoft, cosplay, Star Trek, Star Wars, Halo, Mass Effect, 3D printing, watching people on YouTube, model making in general. Yeah, that would be my interest, David. Triangulum Studios, those are mine. Do you have Ertel? Emily? No. Spencer? No. Diesel17? I think I do. Catherine? No. Isabel? No. Arthur? Yes. Murdoch? No. Jack? No. Alfie? No. Jock? No. Do you have any Tux merchandise? Actually, yes I do. I have the Ertles 10 cents and Sunshine. So, Sodor Flubs. If you like Star Trek, go and watch Triangulum Audio Studios stuff. Highly recommend his stuff. He's a brilliant Trek YouTuber. And, wait there, I recently printed this on my 3D printer. So, I showed off the other phaser rifle last on the marathon stream when Triangulum showed up last time, and I told everyone to go watch his stuff. Now I'm showing you my new, I'm not even looking at the camera, I'm showing you my new phaser rifle that I've actually printed and made myself. So I didn't design the model, I just downloaded it somewhere off the internet and printed it and painted it. I have a cosplay page, Mr. Benn Cosplay and Props, on Facebook, if you would like to go give that a like and subscribe to that one, where I post more of my 3D printing and cosplaying stuff. Definitely go check out Triangulum Audio Studios, click on his name in the live chat, and it should take you straight there. I will actually post a link in the description of this video after it's finished. Sodor Flubs, if you contact Mr. Benn Cosplay and Props, we can discuss terms. Favourite of Season of Thomas is anything that has the narrow gauge railway engine, so Season 4. Anyway, back to the reading. Mr. Benn, all one word, Cosplay and Props. I will put a link in the description in a moment, okay? And Triangulum Audio Studios for the best Star Trek YouTube channel. Anyway, No worries, mate. Your stuff is brilliant, and I'm highly jealous. Anyway, Gordon, the big green engine, flipping out, blue engine. Dear Ian, you asked for a book about Gordon. Here it is! Gordon has been naughty, and the Fat Controller was stern with him. Gordon has now learned his lessons and is a really useful engine again. Off the rails. Gordon was resting in the siding. Pip, 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 pip. Hello, fat face, whistled Henry. What cheek, spluttered Gordon. That Henry is too big for his wheels. Fancy speaking to me like that. Me, he went on, letting off steam. Me, who's never had an accident. Aren't jam whistles and burst safety valves accidents? Asked Percy innocently. No, indeed, Gordon puffed. High spirits might happen to any engine, but to come off the rails... Well, I ask you, is it right? Is it decent? A few days later, it was Henry's turn to take the express. Gordon watched him getting ready. Be careful, Henry, he said. You're not pulling the Flying Kipper now. Mind you, keep on the rails today. Henry snorted away. Gordon yawned and went to sleep. But he didn't sleep long. Wake up, Gordon, said his driver. A special train's coming and we're to pull it. Gordon opened his eyes. Is it coaches or trucks? Trucks, said his driver. Trucks, said Gordon crossly. Pah! They lit Gordon's fire and oiled him ready for the run. The fire was sulky and wouldn't burn. But they couldn't wait, so Edward pushed him to the turntable to get him facing the right way. Again, it's something that's always been there. I remember recording tugs off of the TV onto VHS back in the day. So, and then it's just sort of always been there. Anyway. I won't go, grumbled Gordon. Don't be silly, puffed Edward. Gordon tried hard, but he couldn't stop himself being moved. At last he was on the turntable. Edward was uncoupled and backed away, and Gordon's driving fire jumped down to turn him around. The movement had shaken Gordon's fire. It was now burning nicely and making steam. Gordon was cross and didn't care what he did. He waited till the table was halfway round. I'll show them, he hissed, and moved slowly forward. He only meant to go a little way, just far enough to jam the table and stop it turning, as he had done once before, but he couldn't stop himself, and slithered down the embankment and settled in a ditch. Whoosh, he hissed as his wheels churned the mud. Get me out! Get me out! Not a hope, said his driver and fireman. You're stuck, you silly great engine. Don't you understand that? They telephoned the Fat Controller. So Gordon didn't want to take the special and ran into a ditch, he answered it from his office. What's that you say? The special's waiting. Tell Edward to take it in his place. And Gordon, I'll leave him where he is. We haven't time to bother with him now. A family of toads crowed crossly at Gordon as he lay in the mud. On the other side of the ditch, some little boys were chattering. Doesn't he look silly? They'll never get him out. And they began to sing. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch, all on a Monday morning. I know Gordon's feeling. The school bell rang and still singing the chase down the road. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch. Pah, said Gordon, and blew away 3 tadpoles and an inquisitive newt. Oh dear, he thought, I shall never get out. But that evening they brought floodlights. Then with powerful jacks, they lifted Gordon and made a road of sleeper under his wheels to keep him from the mud. Strong wire ropes were fastened to his back end, and James and Henry, pulling hard, at last managed to bring him to the rails. Late that night, Gordon crawled home, a sadder and wiser engine. I am not that old, Triangulum. I saw that comment, you cheeky bugger. Now, I do remember VHS. It was rewinding it and fast forwarding it to your favourite bit. Oh mate, VHS was the bomb. Better than that DVD stuff and MP3. No, VHS all the way. I do miss VHS, to be honest, sometimes. I had some really good videos on that. What's your favourite trains model? All of them. I have some least favourites, and I'm not going to really list them off the top of my head because I can't remember, but pretty much all of them. Leaves. 2 men were cleaning Gordon. Mind my eye, Gordon grumbled. Shut it, silly. Did you ever see such mutt, Bert? No, I haven't, Alf. You ought to be ashamed, Gordon, giving us extra work. The hosing and scrubbing stopped. Gordon opened one eye, but shut it quickly. Wake up, Gordon, said the Fat Controller sternly, and listen to me. You will pull no more coaches to your really useful engine. So Gordon had to spend his time pulling trucks. Oh, Blockbusters. I miss Blockbusters as well. Netflix ruined Blockbusters. Seriously, if Blockbusters had bought Netflix when they were offered, they wouldn't have gone out of business. So, yes, I know you're still teasing me and everything. Don't worry, trying. Can't wait for your new videos. Anyway. Goods trains, he muttered. He felt his position deeply. That's for you, and you, and you, Gordon said crossly. Oh, screamed the trucks as he shunted them about the yard. Trucks will be chucks, said James, watching him. They won't with me, snorted Gordon. I'll teach them. Go on, and another truck scurried away. They tried to push me down the hill this morning, Gordon explained. It's slippery there. You'll probably need some help. I don't need help on hills, said James huffily. Gordon laughed and got ready for his next train. James went away to take the express. Slippery hills indeed, he snorted. I don't need help. Yes, Neville will hopefully have a role if Sodor Chronicles actually ever gets back on track. Come on, he puffed. All in good time, grumbled the coaches. The train was soon running nicely, but a distant signal checked them close to Gordon's Hill. Gordon's Hill used to be bleak and bare. Strong winds from the sea made it hard to climb. Trees were planted to give shelter, and in the summer the trains run through a leafy avenue. Now autumn had come, and dead leaves fell. The wind usually puffed them away, but today's rain made them heavy, and they did not move. The home signal finally showed clear, and James began to go faster. He started to climb the hill. I'll do it, he puffed confidently. Halfway up, he was not so sure. I must do it, he panted desperately. But try as he would, his wheels slipped on the leaves, and he couldn't pull the train at all. What's the matter? He gasped. Steady, old boy, steady, soothed his driver. His fireman put sand on the rails to help them grip, but James' wheels spun so fast that they only ground the sand and leaves to slippery mud, making things worse than before. The train slowly stopped. Then, help, whistled James, for his wheels were turning forwards and the heavy coaches pulled him backwards, and the whole train started slipping down the hill. His driver shut off steam carefully, put on the brakes, and skillfully stopped the train. Phew! He sat down and mopped his face. I've never known that happen before. I have, said the driver, in Bincombe Tunnel, southern region. The guard poked his head in the cab. Now what? He asked. Back to the station, said the fireman, taking charge, and send for a banker. So the guard warned the signalman, and they brought the train safely down. But Gordon, who'd followed with the goods train, saw what had happened. Gordon left his trucks and crossed over to James. I thought you could climb hills, James. He chuckled. James didn't answer. He had no steam. Ah, well, we live and learn, said Gordon. We live and learn. Never mind, little James, he went on kindly. I'm going to push behind. Whistle when you're ready. James waited till he had plenty of steam. Then pip, pip, he called. Boop, boop, boop. Pull hard, puffed Gordon. We'll do it, puffed James. Pull hard, we'll do it. The engines puffed together. Clouds of smoke and steam towered from the snorting engines as they struggled up the hill. We can do it, puffed James. We will do it, puffed Gordon. The greasy rails sometimes made Gordon's wheels slip, but he never gave up, and presently they reached the top. We've done it, they puffed. Gordon stopped. Poop, poop, he whistled. Goodbye. Peep, 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 peep. Thank you, goodbye, answered James. Gordon watched the coaches wistfully till they were out of sight. Then slowly he trundled back to his waiting goods. Rochelle, Gary, thank you so much for those compliments. It really does mean a lot. Gary, I answered that question earlier, but it was Wild Nor'Wester that made me want to make my series, pretty much. Down the mine. One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks. Puh, remarked Thomas. What a funny smell. Can you smell a smell? I can't smell a smell, said Annie and Clarabelle. A funny, musty sort of smell, said Thomas. No one noticed it till you did, grunted Gordon. It must be yours. Annie, Clarabelle, do you know what I think it is? Whispered Thomas loudly. It's ditch water. Gordon snorted, but before he could answer, Thomas puffed quickly away. Annie and Clarabelle could hardly believe their ears. He's dreadfully rude. I feel quite ashamed. He's dreadfully rude, they twittered to each other. You mustn't be rude. You make us ashamed, they kept telling Thomas. But Thomas didn't care a bit. That was funny, he chuckled. He felt very pleased with himself. Annie and Clarabelle were deeply shocked. They had a great respect for Gordon, the big engine. Thomas left the coaches at the station and went to the mine for some trucks. Long ago, miners digging for lead had made tunnels under the ground. Though strong enough to hold up trucks, their roofs could not bear the weight of engines. A large notice said, Danger! Engines must not pass this board. Thomas had often been warned, but he didn't care. Silly old board, he thought. He'd often tried to pass it, but had never succeeded. This morning he laughed as he puffed along. He had made a plan. He had to push empty trucks into one siding and pull out full ones from another. Oh, I've got an itch all over my nose. What have been your favourite episodes made in Sodor Chronicles? All of them. I can't be biased towards my own. No, speed restrictions, raising standards, heritage, and both specials have been very fun to make and been my favourite. Anyway, his driver stopped him and the fireman went to turn the point. Come on, waved the fireman, and they started. The driver leaned out the cab to see where they were going. Now, said Thomas to himself, and bumping the trucks fiercely, he jerked his driver off the footplate. Hurrah! Laughed Thomas, and he followed the trucks into the siding. Stupid old board, said Thomas as he passed it. There's no danger. His driver, unhurt, jumped up. Look out! He shouted. The fireman clambered into the cab. Thomas squeaked crossly as his brakes applied. It's quite safe, he hissed. Come back, yelled the driver, but before they could move, there was a rumbling, and the rails quivered. The fireman jump cleared. As he did so, the ballast slipped away, and the rails sagged and broke. Fire and smoke, said Thomas. I'm sunk. And he was. Thomas could just see out of the hole, but couldn't move. Oh dear, he said. I am a silly engine. And a very naughty one too, said a voice behind him. I saw you. Please get me out. I won't be naughty again. I'm not so sure, replied the fat controller. We can't lift you out with a crane. The ground's not firm enough. Let me see. I wonder if Gordon could pull you out. Yes, sir, said Thomas nervously. He didn't want to meet Gordon just yet. Ho-ho, down a mine, is he? Ho-ho-ho, laughed Gordon. What a joke, he chortled, puffing to the rescue. Poop, poop, little Thomas, he whistled. We'll have you out in a couple of puffs. Strong cables were fastened between the two engines. Poop, 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 are you ready? Heave, called the Fat Controller. But they didn't pull Thomas out in 2 puffs. Gordon was panting hard and nearly purple before he dragged Thomas out of the hole and safely past the board. I'm sorry I was cheeky, said Thomas. That's all right, Thomas. You made me laugh. I like that. I'm in disgrace, Gordon went on pathetically. I feel very low. I'm in disgrace too, said Thomas. Why, so you are. Thomas, we're both in disgrace. Shall we form an alliance? What was it? An alliance. Thomas, united to stand, together we fall. And Gordon, said Gordon grandly, you help me and I'll help you. How about it? Right you are, said Thomas. Good, that's settled, rumbled Gordon, and buffer to buffer, the allies puffed home. Are you planning an audition for any characters for future episodes, and who would you most likely to collab with? Who's your favourite to work with? I'm not holding any auditions at the moment until the specials, because that's the only time I work with voice cast. Collab. Oh, I'd love to do work with NWR 1991, is it? Or 94? And maybe Wild Nor'Wester again. Who's your favourite to work with? Michael White. Tom Allmark, definitely. Myself, of course. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't really got a favourite. I don't pick favourites when it comes to people I work with. What are your favourite settings in trains? What do you mean by settings? Cadence. Hey, Triangulum's got another subscriber. I highly recommend his uniform episodes and his ship breakdowns. With your special set in winter and autumn, I call for the next one being in summer and spring. Lol, just joking. Ah ha ha! Maybe. Don't know. We'll see what special holidays I can pull out. Paintbots and Queens. Now, this one annoyed me in the TV series because Down the Mine was in like season 1 or 2, and then suddenly Paintbots and Queens is season 5 or 6. Why the gap? Don't know, but it really annoyed me that it did. The station on the line were being painted. The engines were surprised. The Queen is coming, said the painters. The engines in their shed were excited and wondered who would pull the royal train. I'm too old to pull an important train, said Edward sadly. I'm in disgrace, said Gordon gloomily. The Fat Controller would never choose me. He'll choose me, of course, boasted James the Red Engine. You, Henry snorted. You can't climb hills. He'll ask me to pull it. And I'll have a new coat of paint. Wait and see. The days passed. Henry puffed about proudly, quite sure he would be the royal engine. One day, when it rained, his driver and fireman stretched a tarpaulin from the cab to the tender to keep themselves dry. Henry puffed into the big station. A painter was climbing a ladder above the line. Henry's smoke puffed upwards in the thick. It was thick and black. The painter choked and couldn't see. He missed his footing on the ladder and dropped his paint pot and fell plop onto Henry's tarpaulin. The paint poured over Henry's boiler and trickled down each side. The paint pot perched on his dome. The painter clambered down and shook his brush at Henry. You spoil my clean paint with your dirty smoke, he said, and then you take the whole lot. You make me go and fetch some more. He stumbled crossly away. The Fat Controller pushed through the crowd. You look like an ice cake, Henry, he said. That won't do for the royal train. I must make other arrangements. He walked over to the yard. Gordon and Thomas saw him coming and both began to speak. Please, sir. One at a time, smiled the Fat Controller. Yes, Gordon. May Thomas have his branch line again? Said the Fat Controller. Well, Thomas? Please, sir, can Gordon pull coaches now? The Fat Controller pondered. You've both been quite good lately, and you deserve a treat. When the Queen comes, Ed will go in front and clear the line. Thomas will look after the coaches, and Gordon will pull the train. Oh, sir, said the engines happily. The great day came. Percy, Toby, Henry, and James worked hard bringing people to the town. Thomas sorted all their coaches in the yard. Peep, 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 they're coming! Edward steamed in looking smart, with flags and bright paint. 2 minutes passed. 5, 7, 10. Poop, poop! Everyone knew that whistle, and a mighty cheer went up as the Queen's train glided into the station. Gordon was spotless, and his brass shone. Like Edward, he was decorated with flags, but on his buffer beam he proudly carried the royal arms. The Queen was met by the Fat Controller, and before doing anything else, she thanked him for a splendid run. "Not at all, Your Majesty," he said. "Thank you." "We've read," said the Queen to the Fat Controller, "a great deal about your engines. May we see them, please?" So he led the way to where all the engines were waiting. "Pip, pip," whistled Toby and Percy. "They're coming!" "Shh!" hissed Henry and James. But Toby and Percy were too excited to care. The Fat Controller told the Queen their names, and she talked to each engine. Then she turned to go. Percy bubbled over. "3 cheers for the Queen!" he called. "Peep, peep, peep!" whistled all the engines. The Fat Controllers held his ears, but the Queen, smiling, waved to the engines till she passed the gate. Next day, the Queen spoke specially to Thomas, who fetched her coaches, and to Edward and Gordon, who took her away, and no engines felt prouder than Thomas and Edward and Gordon, the big engine. So, what have I missed? Well, with your special... Yeah, read that one. For the settings, I mean, with water effects, I can't tell you off the top of my head, I'm afraid, Candence. Sorry. Down the Mine and Off the Rails were in Season 1, and Paint Pots and Quiz... Yep, I know, I was right. And they got it so wrong as well. Oh, Duck and Donald appear in the episode in the background. Yes, I think they do. Zach, hi, your channel is awesome. And keep up the good work, and I enjoy your videos. Oh, thank you, Zach. I might do. With City of Churro. I might do. Right, I think this will be the last story now. Let me have a quick look through. Oh no, we've got 4 little engines and Edward the Blue Engine. Do you want me to stop there, or shall I do these last 2 stories? Leave a yes to carry on or a no to finish in the chat. I'll give you 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Aw, thank you, Candence. I'm glad everyone's liking my series and everything. I'm really happy I've got 3,000 subscribers. Thank you all for coming on. We've got yes please from Sodor Flubs, yes please from Thomas Lawrence, yes from Triangulum. I knew you'd say that. Hey up, Gabe Wilson. Do you want me to carry on? Say yes or no. Because my throat is starting to get a bit dry. Okay then, I will carry on with these last 2. I promise, last 2. And then I will be finishing on 4 Little Engines, because my throat is starting to get very dry and very sore. But I'm glad you all are enjoying it. I greatly appreciate everybody who's commented, everybody who has been a part of the chat. Thank you to Triangulum Studios for moderating the chat for me. So, Edward the Blue Engine. Dear friends, I think most of you are fond of Edward. His driver, his fireman, Charlie Sand and Sidney Heaver are fond of him too. They were very pleased when they knew I was giving to Edward a book all to himself. Edward is old, and some of the other engines rude about the clanking noise he makes as he did his work. They aren't rude now. These stories will tell you why. Hello, Israel. Cows. Edward the Blue Engine was getting old. His bearings were worn, and he clanked as he puffed along. He was taking 20 empty cattle trucks to a market town. The sun shone, the birds sang, and some cows grazed in a field by the line. Come on, come on, come on, puffed Edward. Oh, 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 screamed the trucks. Edward puffed and clanked, the tracks rattled and screamed. The cows were not used to trains. The noise and smoke disturbed them. Hello, cool dude. I haven't spoken to you in a long time. If it's the same cool dude. I hope it's the same cool dude. You probably know if you are the same cool dude or not. Anyway. They twitched up their tails and ran. Gordon is in Type A0 Pacific from the LNER by Sir Nigel Gresley. He was meant to be the prototype in the Railway series anyway. They galloped across the field and break through the fence and charged the train between the 13th and 14th trucks. The coupling broke and the last 7 trucks left the rails. They were not damaged and stayed upright. They ran for a short way along the sleepers before stopping. Edward felt a jerk but didn't take much notice. He was used to trucks. Bother those trucks, he thought. Why can't they come quietly? He ran on to the next station before either he or his driver realised what had happened. When Gordon and Henry heard about the accident, they laughed and laughed. Fancy allowing cows to break his train. They wouldn't dare do that to us. We'd show them, they boasted. Edward pretended not to mind, but Toby was cross. You couldn't help it, Edward, he said. They've never met cows. I have. I know the trouble they are. Some days later, Gordon rushed through Edward's station. Poop, poop, he whistled. Mind the cows. Ha 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 ha, he chortled, panting up the hill. Hurry, 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 puffed Gordon. Don't make such a fuss. Don't make such a fuss, grumbled his coaches. They rumbled over the viaduct and roared through the next station. A long straight stretch of line lay ahead. In the distance was a bridge. It was a high parapet each side. It seemed to Gordon there was something on the bridge. His driver thought so too. Whoa, Gordon, he said, and shut off steam. Pooh, said Gordon. It's a cow. Shoo, shoo, he hissed, moving slowly onto the bridge. But the cow wouldn't. Shoo. She'd lost her calf and felt lonely. Moo, she said sadly, walking towards him. Gordon stopped. His driver, firemen and some passengers tried to send her away, but she wouldn't go, so they gave it up. Presently, Henry arrived with a train from the other direction. What's this? He said grandly. A cow? I'll soon settle her. Be off, he hissed. But the cow turned and mooed at him. Henry backed away. I didn't want to hurt her, he said. Drivers, firemen, passengers again tried to move the cow, but failed. Henry's guard went back and put detonators on the line to protect his train. At the nearest station he told them about the cow. That must be Bluebill, said a porter thoughtfully. Her calf is here ready to go to market. We'll take it along. So they unloaded the calf and took it to the bridge. Moo, moo, wailed the cow. Moo, moo, bellowed Bluebell. She nuzzled her calf happily and the porter led them away. The 2 trains started. Not a word. Keep it dark, whispered Gordon and Henry as they passed. But the story soon spread. Well, 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 chuckled Edward. 2 big engines afraid of 1 cow. Afraid? Rubbish, said Gordon huffily. We didn't want to hurt the poor thing. We didn't want the poor thing to hurt herself by running against us. We stopped as to not excite her. You see what I mean, my dear Edward? Yes, Gordon, Edward said gravely. Gordon felt somehow Edward saw only too well. Gabe, we actually have some US steam locos in the UK. Rosie is actually a USA tank, dock tank. And they were sent over here in the 1940s to help out with World War II, as well as S-160s that helped pull trains and were also sent over to Europe, I believe, to help with the war effort. Bertie's chase. Pip, pip, we're late, fussed Edward. Pip, 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 where is Thomas? He doesn't make us wait. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Sang the fireman. Johnny's so long at... Never you mind about Johnny, laughed the driver. Just you climb on the cab and look for Thomas. I said the S-160s. Can you see him? No. The guard looked at the watch. 10 minutes late, he said to the driver. We can't wait here all day. Look again, Sid, said the driver, just in case. The fireman got to his feet. Can you see him? No, he answered. There's Bertie's bus in tearing hurry. No need to bother with him, though. He's like he's on a coach tour or something. He clambered down. Right away, Charlie, said the guard, and Edward puffed off. Toot, toot, stop, stop, wailed Bertie, roaring into the yard. But it was no good. Edward's last coach had disappeared into the tunnel. Bother, said Bertie. Bother Thomas's fireman not coming to work today. Oh, why did I promise to help the passengers catch the train? That'll do, Bertie, said his driver. A promise is a promise, and we must keep it. I'll catch Edward or bus, said Bertie grimly as he raced along the tracks. Brum, brum. Oh, my gears and axles, he groaned, toiling up the hill. I'll never be the same bus again. Toot, toot, I see him. Brum, brum. Hurry, hurry, he cheered as he reached the top of the hill. He's reached the station, Bertie groaned at the next minute. No, he stopped by a signal. Hurrah, hurrah, brum, brum, and he tore down the hill, his brakes squealing at the corners. His passengers bounced like balls in a bucket. Well done, Bertie, they shouted. Got it, got it. Hens and dogs scattered in all directions as he raced through the village. Wait, wait, brum, he tooted, skidding into the yard. He was just in time to see the signal drop, the guard wave his flag, and Edward puff out of the station. His passengers rushed to the platform, but it was no good, and they came bustling back. I'm sorry, said Bertie, unhappily. Never mind, Bertie, they said. After him, quickly. Third time lucky, you know. Do you think we'll catch him at the next station, driver? There's a good chance, he answered. Our road keeps close to the line, and we climb hills better than Edward. He thought for a minute. I'll just make sure. He spoke to the station master, while the passengers waited impatiently in the bus. This hill's too steep, grumbled the coaches as Edward snorted in front. They reached the top at last and ran smoothly into the station. Pip, pip, whistled Edward. Get in quickly, please. The porters and people hurried, and Edward impatiently waited to start. Pip, whistled the guard, and Edward's driver looked back, but the flag didn't wave. There was a distant toot-toot, and the station master, running across, snatched the green flag out of the guard's hand. Then everything seemed to happen at once. Toot, 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 bellowed Bertie. His passengers poured onto the platform and scrambled into the train. The station master told the guard and driver what happened, and Edward listened. I'm sorry about the chase, Bertie, he said. My fault, panted Bertie. Late at junction. You didn't know about Thomas's passengers. Pip, pip, goodbye, Bertie. We're off, whistled Edward. 3 cheers for Bertie, called the passengers. They cheered and waved till they were out of sight. Saved from scrap. There is a scrap yard near Edward's station. It's full of rusty old cars and machinery. They are brought here to be broken up. The pieces are loaded into trucks, and Edward pulls them to the steelworks, where they are melted down and used again. One day, Edward saw a traction engine in the yard. Hello, he said. You're not broken and rusty. What are you doing here? I'm Trevor, said the traction engine sadly. They're going to break me up next week. What a shame, said Edward. My driver says I only need some paint, brasso and oil to be as good as new, Trevor went on sadly. But it's no good. My master doesn't want me. I suppose it's because I'm old-fashioned. Edward snorted indignantly. People say I'm old-fashioned, but I don't care. The Fat Controller says I'm a useful engine. My driver says I'm useful too, replied Edward. I sometimes feel ill, but I don't give up like trackers. I struggle on and finish the job. I've never broken down in my life, he ended proudly. What work did you do? Asked Edward kindly. My master would send us from farm to farm. We thrashed the corn, ailed logs, sawed timber and did lots of other work. We made friends at all the farms and saw them every year. The children loved to see us come. They followed us in crowds and watched us all day. My driver would sometimes give them rides. Trevor shut his eyes. I like children, he said simply. Oh yes, I like children. I hate that line. Broken up, what a shame. Broken up, what a shame, clanked Edward as he went back to work. I must help Trevor, I must. He thought of the people he knew who liked engines. Edward had lots of friends, but strangely none of them had room for a traction engine at home. It's a shame, he says as he brought his coaches to the station. Then, pip pip, he whistled. Why didn't I think of him before? Waiting on the platform was the very person. Morning, Charlie. Morning, Sid. Hello, Edward. You look upset. What's the matter, Charlie? He asked the driver. There's a traction engine in the scrapyard, Vicar. It'll be broken up next week. It's a shame. Jem Cole says he'd never drawn a better engine. Do save him, sir. You've got room, sir. Yes, Edward, I've got room, laughed the vicar, but I don't need a traction engine. It'll saw wood and give children rides. Do buy him, sir, please. We'll see, said the vicar, and climbed into the train. Jem Cole came on Saturday afternoon. The Reverend's coming to see you, Trevor. Maybe he'll buy you. Do you think he will? Asked Trevor hopefully. He will when I've lit your fire and cleaned you up, said Jem. When the vicar and his two boys arrived in the evening, Trevor was blowing off steam. He hadn't felt so happy for months. Watch this, Reverend, called Jem, and Trevor chuffed happily about the yard. Oh, Daddy, do buy him, pleaded the boys, jumping up and down in excitement. Now, I'll try, and the vicar climbed up beside Jem. Show your paces, Trevor, he said, and drove him about the yard. Then he went into the office and came out smiling. I've got him cheap, Jem, I've cheap. Do you hear that, Trevor? cried Jem. The Reverend saved you and you'll live at the vicarage now. Peep, peep, whistled Trevor happily. We'll drive him home for me, Jem, and take him... Will you drive him home for me, Jem, and take these scallywags with you? They won't want to come in the car when there's a traction engine to ride on. Trevor's home in the vicarage orchard is close to the railway. He sees Edward's every day. His paint is spotless and his brush shines like gold. He saws firewood in the winter, and Jem sometimes borrows him from when a tractor fails. I'm getting my own tongue-tied. Trevor likes doing his job, but his happiest days is the church fete. Then, with a long wooden seat bolted to his bunker, he chuffs around the orchard giving rides to children. Long afterwards you'll see him shut his eyes, remembering. I like children, he whispers happily. Yeah, that I like children line really hasn't aged very well. Oh well, it's a traction engine. Old iron. One day James had to wait at Edward's station till Edward and his train came in. This made him cross. Late again, he shouted. Edward only laughed and James fumed away. Edward's impossible, he grumbled to the others. He clanks about like lots of old iron, and he's so slow he makes us wait. Thomas and Percy were indignant. Old iron, they snorted. Slow? Why, Edward could beat you in a race any day. Really? Said James huffily. I should like to see him do it. One day James' driver did not feel well when he came to work. I'll manage, he said. But when they reached the top of Gordon's Hill, he could hardly stand. The fireman drove the train to the next station. He spoke to the signalman, put the trucks in a siding, and coupled James ready for shunting. Then he helped the driver over to the station and asked them to look after him and find a relief. Then he helped the red line. Suddenly the signalman shouted, and the fireman turned round and saw James puffing away. He ran hard, but he couldn't catch James and soon came back to the signal box. The signalman was busy. All traffic halted, he announced at last. Up and down main lines are cleared for 30 miles and the inspector's coming. The fireman mopped his face. What's happened? He asked. Two boys were on footplate. They tumbled off when James started. I shot them, then they ran like rabbits. Just let me catch them, said the fireman grimly. I'll teach them to meddle with my engine. Both men jumped as the telephone rang. Yes, answered the signalman. He's here. Right, I'll tell him. The inspector's coming at once in Edward. He wants a shunter's pole and a coil of wire rope. What for? Wondered the fireman. Search me, but you better get them quickly. The fireman was ready and waiting when Edward arrived. The inspector saw the pole and rope. Good man, he said. Jump in. We'll catch him, puffed Edward, crossing to the upline in pursuit. Oh, I'm sorry, Israel. Goodbye, my friend. This stream will be saved, so don't worry, you can come back to it at a later date. Watch from the start. James was laughing as he left the yard. What a lark! What a lark! He chuckled to himself. Presently, he missed his driver's hand on the regulator, and then he realised there was no one in the cab. What shall I do? He wailed. I can't stop! Help! Help! We're coming! We're coming! Edwards was panting up behind with every ounce of steam he had. With a great effort, he caught up and crept alongside, slowly gaining till his smoke box was level with James' buffer beam. Steady, Edward! The inspector stood on. Hello, Harry. Just reading the RWS and answering questions. The stream's almost over, I'm afraid. Anyway, steady, Edward! The inspector stood on Edward's front, holding a noose of rope in the crook of the shunter's pole. He was trying to slip it over James's buffer. The engine swayed and lurched. He tried again and again. More than once he nearly fell, but just saved himself. At last, got him! He shouted. He pulled the noose tight and came back to the cab safely. Gently braking so as to not snap the rope, Edward's driver checked the engine's speed, and James's fireman scrambled and took control. The engines puffed back side by side. So, the old iron caught you after all, chuckled Edward. I'm sorry, whispered James. Thank you for saving me. That's all right. You were splendid, Edward. The Fat Controller was waiting, and thanking the men warmly. Fine piece of work, he said. James, you can rest and take your train. I'm proud of you. Edward shall go to the works, and your worn parts mended. Oh, thank you, sir, said Edward happily. It'll be lovely not to clank. The two naughty boys were soon caught by the police, and their fathers walloped them soundly. Punished. Smack on the bottom. Cane across the legs. The old slipper. They were also forbidden to watch trains till they could be trusted. James's driver soon got well in hospital and is now back at work. James missed him very much, but he missed Edward more, and he will be glad to know that Edward came home the other day. James and all the engines gave him a tremendous welcome. The Fat Controller thinks he'll be deaf for weeks. So, 4 little engines left. Any more questions? Please ask them now. I'm having a quick respite while my throat is hurting. Are you all enjoying the stories? Am I being a good narrator? I'm not slipping up too much. I'm putting enough emotion in. Am I being emotional? Am I emoting enough for you? Chat is quiet. That's awkward. Your British phrases amuse me. Oh, these are old British phrases that haven't been used in many a year. You gotta remember these were written back in the 1940s and 50s, so a lot of these phrases are very, very old. And I enjoy them. I might start using them more often. Oh, thank you, Harry. Thank you, Triang. That is really nice to see that people think I'm that good. Oh, thanks, Dan. This is the last one now, as my throat is getting very dry and very sore. So, yes. 4 little engines. The start of the Skarloey Railway. My favourite. Dear friends, Sir Handel Brown is the owner of a little railway which goes to Skarloey and Renaeus. Skarloey means lake in the woods, and Renaeus means divided waterfall. Fun fact, I've been to this railway. Not the Skarloey Rail, but the Tally-Clin Railway, which it's based on. Make British phrases great again. I love that hashtag. I think I'm going to use that. They are beautiful places, and lots of people visit them. The owner is very busy, so Mr. Peter Sam, the Fin Controller, manages the railway. The 2 engines, who are called Skarloey and Renaeus, grew old and tired, so they only bought 2 others. The stories tell you what happened. Skarloey remembers. The Fat Controller had sent Edward to the works to be mended. Near the works station, Edward noticed a narrow-gauge engine standing in an open-sided shed. That's Skarloey, he thought. What's he doing here? He remembered Scarlow and his brother Reneus, because in the old days he'd often brought passengers who wanted to travel up to the lake in their little trains. "Thank you, Gary." As the men at the works could not mend him at once, Edward asked them to put him on a siding close to Scarlowy. Scarlowy was pleased to see Edward. "The owner has just bought 2 more engines," he said. "He told me I was a very old engine and deserved a good rest. He gave me the shed so that I could see everything and not be lonely. But I am lonely all the same," he continued sadly. "I miss Reneus very much. Yesterday one of the new engines pushed him on a truck, and now he's gone to be mended. I wish I could be mended too and pull coaches." "Have your coaches got names?" asked Edward. "Oh, yes. There's Agnes, Ruth, Gemina, I think, Lucy and Beatrice. Agnes is proud. She has cushions for first-class passengers. She pities Ruth, Jeremiah and Lucy, who are third-class with bare boards, but all 4 sniff at Beatrice. Beatrice often smells of fish and cheese, but she's most important," said Scarlowy earnestly. "She has a little window through which guard sells tickets. I sometimes leave the others behind, but I always take Beatrice. You must have tickets and a guard, you know." "Of course," said Edward gravely. "Reneus and I," continued Scarlowy, "used to take turns at pulling the trains. We know everybody, and everybody knows us. We whistle to the people in the fields and the level crossings, and in lovely cottages and farms, and the people always wave to us. We love passing the schools and the playgrounds at break time, for then the children will always run over to the fence and watch us go by. The passengers always wave, because they think the children are waving to them, but we engines know better, of course," said Scarlowy importantly. "Yes, we do indeed," said Edward. "We take your tourists to the lake and get them ready to pull the train back. We enjoy the morning journey home, because our friends from the village come down to do their shopping. We whistle before every station, 'Pip, pip, look out,' and the people are there ready." "Where's Mrs. Lass?" asked the guard. "She's coming, pip, pip," we whistle, and Mrs. Lass comes running onto the platform. "We'll leave you behind one of these days, missus," laughs our driver, "but we know we never will. We stop elsewhere too, at farm crossings and stiles where paths lead to lonely houses. Reneus and I know all the places very well indeed. Our driver used to say that we would stop even if he didn't pull on the brakes. Sometimes on market day, Ruth, Gemma and Lucy were so full of people that the guard would allow third-class passengers to travel in Agnes. She didn't like that at all, and would rumble, 'First-class coach, third-class people.' That made me cross. 'Shut up,' I'd say, 'or I'll bump you.' That soon stopped her rudeness to my friends." Just then workmen came. "You're going to be mended now, Edward," they said. "Come along." "Goodbye, Scarlowy. Thank you for telling me about your railway. It's a lovely little line." "It is, it is. Thank you for talking to me, Edward. You've cheered me up. Goodbye." Scarlowy watched Edward being taken back to the works. Then, shutting his eyes, he dozed in the warm afternoon sun. He smiled as he dozed, for he was dreaming, as old engines will, of happy days gone by. Sir Handel. The new engines looked very smart. One was called Sir Handel, and the other Peter Sam. "What a small shed," grumbled Sir Handel. "This won't do at all." "I think it's nice," said Peter Sam. "Huh," grunted Sir Handel. "What's that, Rubbish?" "Shh, shh, Peter Sam. Said Peter Sam. "That's Scarlowy, the famous old engine." "I'm sorry, Scarlowy," he whispered. "Sir Handel's upset now. But it's quite nice, really." Scarlowy felt sorry for Peter Sam. "Now, Sir Handel," said the fireman next morning, "we'll get you ready." "I'm tired," he yawned. "Let Peter Sam go. He'd love it." "No," said the fireman. "Owner's orders, you're first." "Oh, well," said Sir Handel sulkily, "I suppose I must." When his driver arrived, Sir Handel puffed away to fetch the coaches. Whatever next? He snorted. These aren't coaches, they're cattle trucks. Oh! Screamed Agnes, Ruth, Lucy, Gemma, and Beatrice. What a horrid engine! It's not what I'm used to, clanked Sir Handel rebelliously, making for the station. He rolled to the platform just as Gordon arrived. Hello, he said. Who are you? I'm Gordon. Who are you? I'm Sir Handel. Yes, I've heard of you. You're an express engine, I believe. So am I, but I used to bogie coaches, not these cattle trucks. Do you have bogie coaches? Oh, yes, I see you do. We must have a chat sometime. Sorry, I can't stop. I must keep time, you know. And he puffed off, leaving Gordon at a loss for words. Come along, he puffed. Cattle trucks, grumbled the coaches. We'll pay him out. I need a new chair. Get one for Christmas, hopefully. Presently, they stopped at a station. The line curved here and began to climb. It was not very steep, but the day was misty and the rails were slippery. Hold back, whispered Agnes to Ruth. Hold back, whispered Ruth to Gemma. Hold back, whispered Gemma to Lucy. Hold back, whispered Lucy to Beatrice, and then giggled as Sir Handel started and their couplings tightened. Come on, he puffed as his wheels slipped on the greasy rails. Come on! His wheels were spinning, but the coaches pulled him back, and the train stopped on the hill beyond the station. I can't do it, he grumbled. I'm used to sensible bogie coaches, not these bumpy cattle trucks. The guard came up. I think the coaches are up to something, he told the driver, so they decided to bring the train down again to a level piece of line, to give Sir Handel a good start. The guard helped the fireman put sand on the rails, and Sir Handel made a tremendous effort. The coaches tried hard to drag him back, but he puffed and pulled so hard that they were soon over the top and away on their journey. The thing controller was severe with Sir Handel that night. You're a troublesome engine, he said. You're a rude, conceited, and much too big for your wheels. Next time I shall punish you severely. Sir Handel was impressed and behaved well for several days. Then one morning he took the train to the stop station. He was cross. It was Peter Sam's turn, but the thing controller had made him go instead. We'll leave the coaches, said his driver, and fetch some trucks for the quarry. Trucks? Snorted Sir Handel. Trucks? Yes, his driver repeated. Trucks. Sir Handel jerked forward. I won't, he muttered. So there. He lurched, bumped, and stopped. His driver and fireman got out. Told you, said Sir Handel triumphantly. He had pushed the rails apart and settled down between them. They telephoned the thing controller. He came up at once with Peter Sam and brought some workmen in a truck. Then he and the fireman took Peter Sam home with the coaches, while the driver and the workmen put Sir Handel back on the rails. Sir Handel did not feel so pleased with himself when he crawled home and found the thing controller waiting for him. You're a very naughty engine, he said sternly. You will stay in the shed till I can trust you to behave. Peter Sam and the refreshment lady. As Sir Handel was shut up, Peter Sam had to run the line. He was excited and the fireman found it hard to get him ready. Sober up, can't you? He growled. Anyone would think, said Sir Handel rudely, that he wanted to work. All respectable engines do, said Scarlowly firmly. I wish I could work myself. Keep calm, Peter Sam. Don't get too excited. You'll do very well. But Peter Sam was in such a state that he couldn't listen. When his driver came, Peter Sam ran along to fetch the coaches. Pip, 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 come along, girls, he whistled, and although he was excited, he remembered to be careful. That's the way, my dears, gently does it. What did he say? Asked Gemma, who was deaf. He said, come along, girls, and he called us his dears, simpered the others' coaches. Really, one does not know what to think. Such a handsome young engines too, so nice and well-mannered. And they tittered happily together as they followed Peter Sam. Peter Sam fussed into the station to find Henry already there. This won't do, youngster, said Henry. I can't keep waiting. If you are late tonight, I'll go off and leave your passengers behind. Yes, you can ask questions as I read. I will get back to them in a moment, don't worry. Pooh, said Peter Sam, but secretly he was a little worried. But he couldn't feel worried for long. What fun it all is, he thought as he ran round his train. He let off steam happily while he waited for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag. Peter Sam puffed happily away, singing a little song. I'm Peter Sam, I'm running this line. I'm Peter Sam, I'm running this line. The people waved as he passed the farms and cottages and gave a loud whistle at the school. The children all ran to see him puffing by. Agnes, Ruth, Gemma, Lucy and Beatrice enjoyed themselves too. He's cocky, truck, truck, but he's nice, truck, truck. He's cocky, truck, truck, but he's nice, truck, truck. They all sang as they trundled along. They were growing very fond of Peter Sam. Every afternoon they had to wait an hour at the station by the lake. The driver, fireman and the guard usually brought something from the refreshment lady and went and sat in Beatrice. The refreshment lady always came home on this train. Time passed slowly today for Peter Sam. At last his driver and fireman came. Pip, pip, hurry up please, he whistled to the passengers, and they came strolling back to the station. Peter Sam was sizzling with impatience. How awful, he thought, if we miss Henry's train. The last passengers arrived. The guard was ready with his flag and whistle. The refreshment lady walked across the platform. Then it happened. The guard says that Peter Sam was too impatient. Peter Sam says he was sure he heard a whistle. Anyway, he started. Come quickly, he puffed. Stop, 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 wailed the coaches. You've left her behind, you've left her behind. The guard whistled and waved his red flag. The driver, looking back, saw the refreshment lady shouting, running after the train. Bother, groaned Peter Sam as he stopped. We'll miss Henry now. The refreshment lady climbed into Beatrice and then they started again. We're sure to be late, pattered Peter Sam frantically. His driver had to keep checking him. Steady, old boy, steady. Pip, pip, Peter Sam whistled at the station. Hurry, please hurry, as they reached the big station just as Henry steamed in. Hurrah, Peter Sam, we've caught him after all. And he let off steam with relief. Whoosh, not bad, youngster, said Henry loftily. The refreshment lady shook her fist at Peter Sam. What do you mean by leaving me behind? She demanded. I'm sorry, refreshment lady, but I was worried about our passengers, he told her. And he told her what Henry had said. The refreshment lady laughed. You silly engine, she said. Henry wouldn't dare go. He's got to wait. He's a guaranteed connection. Well, said Peter Sam, where's that Henry? But Peter Sam was too late that time, for Henry had chortled away. So, Rochelle, the reason why they haven't been replaced by diesels is actually the Scarleria Railway is now a fully preserved railway line. It's based on the Tallyclyn Railway in Wales, where Reverend Audrey volunteered at for a long time, and part of his collection is there. They've even recreated his study in the main station, and it is the first narrow gauge, first preserved line in the UK and in history, as far as we are aware. And because of the size of them, it's just easier to keep running steam engines instead of getting diesels in, basically. Anyway, on with the stories. Old Faithful. I think it's that one. Yeah, this is the last story now, people, so get ready to say goodbye and good night. Sir Handel stayed shut up for several days. But one market day, Peter Sam could not work. He needed repairs. Sir Handel was glad to come out. He tried to be kind, but the coaches didn't trust him. They were awkward and rude. He even sang them little songs, but it was no use. It was most unfortunate, too, that Sir Handel had to check suddenly to avoid running over a sheep. He bumped us, screamed the coaches. Let's pay him out. The coaches knew that all engines must go carefully at a place near the big station, but they were so cross with Sir Handel that they didn't care what they did. They surged into Sir Handel, making him lurch off the line. Luckily, no one was hurt. Sir Handel limped to the shed, the thing controller inspect the damage. No more work for you today, he said. Bother those coaches. We must take the village people home and fetch the tourists without an engine. What about me, sir? Said a voice. Skarloey, he exclaimed. Can you do it? I'll try, answered the old engine. The coaches stood at the platform. Skarloey advanced on them, hissing crossly. I'm ashamed of you, he scolded. Such behaviour. You might have hurt your passengers on market day, too. We're sorry, Skarloey. We didn't think. It's that Sir Handel. He's no tails, said Skarloey firmly. I won't have it. And don't you dare try any tricks on me. No, Skarloey. Of course not, Skarloey, quivered the coaches meekly. Skarloey might be old and have dirty paint, but he was certainly an engine who would stand no nonsense. His friends crowded round, and the guard had to shoo them away. Before they could start, Skarloey felt happy. He remembered all the gates and stars where he had to stop, and whistled to his friends. The sun shone, the rails were dry. This is lovely, he thought, but presently they began to climb, and he felt short of steam. Bother my tubes, he panted. Take your time, old boy, soothed his driver. I'll manage, he wheezed. And pausing for a breath at the station, he gallantly struggled along. After a rest at the top station, Skarloey was ready to start. It'll be better downhill, he thought. The coaches ran nicely, but he soon began to feel tired again. His springs were weak, and the rail joints jarred his wheels. Then, with a crack, a front spring broke, and he stopped. I feel all crooked, he complained. That's torn it, said his driver. We'll need a bus now for our passengers. No, pleaded Skarloey. I'll be ashamed to have a bus take my passengers. I'll get them home or bust, he promised bravely. The Finn controller looked at his watch and paced the platform. James and his train waited impatiently too. Then they heard a horse, a bit like my voice, peep peep. Then, groaning, clanging and clanking, Skarloey crept into sight. He was tilted to one side and making fearful noises, but he plodded bravely on. I'll do it, he gasped between the clanks and the groans. I've done it, he sighed thankfully, as the train stopped where James was waiting. James said nothing. He waited for his passengers and then respectfully puffed away. You were right, sir, said Skarloey to the other owner that night. Old engines can't pull trains like young ones. The owner smiled. They can if they're mended, old faithful, he said, and that's what'll happen to you. You deserve it. Oh, sir, said Skarloey happily. Sir Handel is longing for Skarloey to come back. He thinks Skarloey is the best engine in the world. He does his fair share of work now, and the coaches never play tricks on him, because he always manages them in the way Skarloey does. If you enjoyed these stories, you will enjoy a visit to the Tallyclyn Railway in Tywyn in Wales. And I am afraid, ladies and gentlemen, people and engines, trekkers and Star Wars fans, that is the end for tonight. I am very much tired. I've been at work all day. My throat is starting to feel very sore and very hoarse. I feel like a dry steam engine. Thank you all again for joining the stream today and asking your questions either on the post or in the chat, and for taking part in the chat. As I said earlier, Sodor Chronicles is currently on hold due to technical difficulties. I am trying my hardest to get it tidied up, but it's looking not good at that. So yeah. Yes, Daniel, it has definitely been a very long 2 hours. It's probably the longest I've spoken non-stop. Hey, I'm a Star Wars fan, Triangulum, and you know I am. Probably there's some Star Wars fans in this stream. Everyone jump on Triangulum, tell them how much you love Star Wars. But anyway, thank you again, everyone, for coming. I am going to end the stream any moment now. I just want to see everyone jump on Triangulum and tell them they all love Star Wars first. Please don't let me down. If you have, also, if you would please look up my cosplay page, Mr. Benn Cosplay and Props. There is a link on there for a charity stream for my friend Dovrig. He is the Iron Warrior cosplay, and he is trying to raise money for a cancer charity in Wales. It's going to be on for 12 hours. Please go and support him. It would be mightily helpful. I, myself, will be on that stream from 8 o'clock till the end of it at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock sort of time. Yeah, just before 11 o'clock at night, tomorrow night. So if you want to know more about my cosplay stuff and talk and see myself talk with a load of other cosplayers, I will place that link into the community tab on YouTube, as well as my Facebook page, my Discord, and Mr. Benn Cosplay and Props Facebook page. Please, if you could all join that stream tomorrow, that would be great. Raid the stream if you like. Screaming Tenshine1 Productions is the best, and see what happens. Either way, I will be on that stream from 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So anyway, thank you all again for joining the stream today. We are at 3,000 subscribers. Let me just do a more accurate count for you. 3,000. Oh my god. Okay. More than 3,000 apparently now. This should be the 3,222 subscribers. So yes, 3,222. Sodor Chronicles Halloween Special Ghost of Edward's Past is sitting at 22,000 views, and is ranked. Yep, 22,000 views. So yes, it is. No, I just want to see the most views. Let's have a look. So yes, the Thomas special is at 126,000 views, and the new special is right the way down there. Okay. Oh, below all the other episodes. So yes, anyway, thank you all again. Very nice. 3,222 subscribers. Please, if you want, share my page, share my Facebook page, share my channel, get me some more subscribers. The sooner we can get to 4,000, the sooner I can do another RWS reading and destroy my throat. Thank you again, and good night.